All right, we're back. This is the fourth main video in a series of professional development lectures or seminars on publishing and presenting research in academic journals and conferences. My name again is Luke Plonsky, TESOL faculty member. And this particular video, in this video, we're talking about additional suggestions on publishing. And this sort of things that's kind of spillover from things that are spillover from the previous video, which was talking about the journal submission process and suggestions for making that work for you. We'd already talked about in previous videos why we might want to publish and present our work in academic journals and conferences. Talked about the process of preparing a manuscript for preparation, which can be a long and detailed and sometimes very challenging process, but I think a worthwhile process. Then the last video addressed the journal submission process, which is also long and very challenging. This is not work that's cut out for the faint of heart. This is challenging work, and a lot of nuance in the process. And there's sort of these kind of social, academic, professional protocols that are involved. That's part of what this series of lectures is really about, is trying to demystify that process a little bit, make it more accessible for those who want to get involved and be more successful in publishing the research and presenting in academic venues and conferences. And so today, in this discussion, we're talking about more suggestions on publishing, how to get your work out there. The last two videos we'll talk about getting accepted into conferences and then trying to make the most of those conferences in terms of making great presentations. So 6 more suggestions on publishing. I sort of mentioned this last one, but at all stages in the process, throughout the submission process, you want to make sure, just like in any professional situation, you want to respond promptly, thank the editor for their time and consideration. Again, their work is almost always entirely volunteer. They do it as a service to the profession. And so as much as, to the extent that you can make their lives easier and more pleasant, the better. And we want to make sure we do that. And I say that not just as an editor myself, but as an author as well, that I really appreciate the work that reviewers and editors do. And I've said this before in the other videos. And I just want to make sure that editors know that we appreciate the work they do, and that we're kind and always very, very courteous. They're doing this as a service. A second suggestion for publishing, and this is sort of the next two are sort of concerned with increasing your odds or the likelihood that you'll have a paper accepted, because we know that acceptance rates vary widely, but for lots of the top journals, some of them are in the low single digits even. So your odds are really low. So how can we improve our chances a little bit? One way we can do that is to consider calls for papers in special issues. A lot of journals will publish one special issue per year on a particular theme or a topic or an area, and submitting a paper in response to a call for special issue, if your paper fits within the scope of the theme of that special issue, can be a great way to increase the likelihood that your paper will be accepted. Because if in any given year a particular journal receives 300 submissions and only 30 of them can be accepted at a 10% acceptance rate for a special issue, if there's maybe 6 or 8 articles that are going to be accepted, the odds of the percentage of studies that are going to be accepted is going to be probably a lot higher than 10%. So if you have a paper that's relevant to a special issue, I think it's a great idea to submit for consideration in that special issue. I think that in terms of increasing your likelihood of getting accepted. Another way to do that is to submit to newer journals, as long as they are, again, we talked about in a previous video, in terms of choosing an appropriate venue or outlet for your work, how to identify journals that are legitimate as opposed to more predatory. And there are a lot of predatory for-profit journals out there that are seeking to capitalize on the interest of eager scholars' eagerness to publish. So we want to avoid those, of course, but when there are legitimate journals that are new, they often receive far fewer submissions than the more established journals. And it's a great idea, I think, to submit to those journals because, again, you're gonna have a higher likelihood of being accepted into those journals, just simply based on the acceptance rates of them and the number of papers that they're considering for publication at any given time. Another suggestion I have and this may sound kind of odd, this isn't really about directly about your own writing or your own manuscript preparation and submission. But I suggest that everybody who's interested in publishing also engage in manuscript reviewing. I've talked about a couple times in these videos how I do a lot of manuscript reviews. I do probably 2 or 3 per month for different journals, or sometimes more. This month in the summer months, summer right now, I do more than that because I think more papers are getting submitted. People have a little bit more free time and they're submitting more manuscripts. So I review a lot, and I find it a really worthwhile activity. And there's a lot of good reasons to get involved in manuscript reviews for journals. And I'll just put out a few of these ideas here. One, and maybe most pertinent to our discussion here, is that being a manuscript reviewer can help make you a better writer. Becomes you see what's being out there, you see what's being shared out there in the literature. You keep current. Another reason it might help you, actually, this is, maybe from a more self-serving standpoint, but it helps build goodwill with editors. So if you are a reviewer for your manuscript, a regular reviewer, I think an editor that sees your submission to the journal that he or she edits, they're going to be definitely more open to considering your manuscript if they know that you serve the journal and you care about the journal, you're familiar with the journal's publishing practices and policies. And so I think it's always good to build goodwill with editors. They do sit in a position of a somewhat powerful position in terms of academic currency. Another reason I like to review is because it gives you a say in the future of the field. You get to have participate in that process, even though you're not contributing to the literature directly. You're contributing to the ideas and how they get disseminated, and the way that the articles are shaped, and the ideas that they include. It can give you insight into the publication process. Even if you're relatively new to publishing, you can see more how that happens. And along with your own review, you often see a lot of journals will send all the reviewers the reviews or the comments of all the other reviewers. So in a way, it can help you calibrate your knowledge or your perceptions of different studies with other experts. It shows that reviewing manuscripts also shows that you care about the field's development. If you're a frequent reviewer, people know that you really care and you're committed to professional service. I also view it as somewhat of a sign of expert status. If you're asked very frequently to review manuscripts for different journals, it shows the field and others in the field that you're an expert in a number of different areas, or at least in one particular area. And even though peer review is generally blind to the author, the editors certainly know. And also, usually, most journals will publish a list of all the reviewers once a year in the journal itself to show everybody who are the people that have reviewed for the journals. Another great reason to engage in peer review is that it can lead to more influence and prestige as an editor. As I've mentioned a couple times in these videos, I'm a managing editor for a journal called Foreign Language Annals, which has been around for about 50 years, and the associate editor for a journal called Studies in Second Language Acquisition. I certainly wouldn't have those positions if I hadn't previously engaged in a lot of peer review for a number of different journals. So and I enjoy those editing positions, and so those were directly related to my experience as previously as a reviewer for manuscripts. So yes, it takes time. This varies. People spend different amounts of time on the manuscript reviews that they conduct. I think when I first started reviewing manuscripts, I probably would spend about a whole day on a single manuscript. Now I try to limit myself just because I have lots of different things going on, my own research that I care about, as well as my teaching, of course, and other professional service. And so I try to limit myself to 2, 3, 4 hours max per review. But still, that adds up. That's almost half a day. And if you do 2 or 3 of those a month, then that's a big chunk of your time. But it's something that I certainly value. And for all these reasons and others. Another one is that it keeps you current, keeps your critical eye fresh, right? So you're always looking and trying to be critical and see how you can improve other people's work. And it keeps you current, because if you're reading papers that are in your area, then you know exactly what the cutting edge with the newest stuff that's happening is. And so there's you're reading about the studies, and you're also getting that updated literature review that comes in the manuscripts as well. I sort of put jokingly that it helps you get back at reviewer number 2, the sort of famed fictional anti-hero of manuscript reviews. No, I'm just kidding about that. But it can also be fun. I actually really enjoy digging into these papers and trying to make them stronger and having a say in shaping the way that the field moves forward through manuscript review. So I'll encourage you to do that as well as a sort of indirect way to improve and increase your likelihood of getting your work published. And yeah, if you're interested in this, you can always just contact editors directly. Contact the editors of journals that you're interested in, that you read, and just let them know, hey, I'm interested and willing to serve as a manuscript reviewer. Here are my areas of expertise. These are the areas that I'd be willing to review manuscripts in. Here's a little bit of my background, just a couple lines by email, and they may say, great, thanks so much. We'll put you in our database. Or they may say, okay, great, will you please go to the online submission platform and create a reviewer profile for yourself, and then put in these keywords to help us identify you in response to certain manuscripts you receive, and then we'll put you in the pool. And that's how it goes. So if you're not currently reviewing manuscripts and you want to be, you can certainly reach out to editors and make yourself available for that purpose. So a couple more suggestions. I mentioned this before a little bit, but I want to highlight here again that everybody pay really close attention to editorial guidelines, both generally, but specifically in the realm of transparency, in terms of reporting data, reporting analyses, reporting results really thoroughly. This is hugely important. And just to give a couple examples, when we leave out things, even basic descriptive statistics for those of us working with quantitative data, things like standard deviations or reliability estimates, this has a number of consequences in terms of it limits readers, limits synthesists, people synthesizing previous research. It introduces upward bias in terms of only having certain types of data available at the synthetic or secondary level. And so we want to make sure that we're as transparent as possible. It also really makes the job of the reviewer and the editor easier, and that's what we're generally hoping for. We want their work to be easy and comfortable. We want to present everything there so they can make a sound decision based on our work and not have questions. We want to make everything clear for them and let them know as much as possible about our study. And also just, giving more information just helps them to trust more of the claims that we're making. Essentially, it helps them believe more in the internal validity of the study that we're reporting. So we want to just make sure we explain things as clearly as possible. So something I see sometimes in the realm of instructed second language acquisition research is a lack of description of the treatment. If there's some kind of instructional intervention and then the report just says something like, and then the students were provided with opportunities to practice the target structure. Well, what kind of practice? How long did they practice? How often did they practice? Were they given materials? Were they given prompts? What did the practice look like? This is something that we don't often, something that we really want to know, but that sometimes authors omit. So you want to make sure that you're as transparent as possible in your report. And just in terms of including quantitative data, this is just an example of the new publication guidelines for one of the journals that I work with, Studies in Second Language Acquisition, or SSLA, just where we laid out really clearly what we expect in terms of clear and thorough reporting of quantitative data. But of course, you can also turn to the APA or whatever publication manual the journal that you're submitting to abides by. And then finally, I think that a lot of studies out there, sometimes we're not thinking this way, but a lot of studies have methodological implications, not just practical or theoretical implications, but have methodological implications. You may have tried out some new methodological technique or come up with some new way to design a study or some new data collection protocol or instrument. I think that could be worth writing up. So you may consider, in addition, to get more mileage out of your work, to not just write up the main study, but to also write up a methodologically oriented paper based on the research that you've conducted. Okay, so we'll stop there. Those were a few additional suggestions on getting work published. Next up, in the next 2 video lectures, we'll talk about conferences, specifically getting your work accepted into conferences, and then some suggestions I have for making great presentations at academic conferences. Okay, so I'll stop there, and thanks very much, and I'll see you in the next video.